Hello, this is Sarah Braasch. Welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to do a video. I think the first video I'll do will be about the Connecticut Freedom of Information Commission and their proposed decision that I got a couple of days ago. It was very upsetting. It was written by Connecticut Freedom of Information Commission hearing officer Danielle McGee, and it's very clear that this decision is meant to protect the Yale administration, and it's meant to obstruct me from being able to save my life and my lifelong human and civil rights, academic and legal careers. It's basically meant to protect racist cops and incentivize them to kill black suspects to prevent the police body camera footage of their police brutality against black suspects from reaching the public. And it's basically, it's just completely ridiculous. It's a travesty of justice. It's a farce, and it's completely ridiculous. So the exemption from having to release the Yale campus police body camera footage from the Living or Not Being Well Black hate crime hoax at Yale that Yale was claiming was that there were uncorroborated criminal allegations on the Yale campus police body camera footage. Now, most states don't allow for this exemption, and it's pretty obvious why most states don't allow for this exemption once I explain what's happening, what's going on. So what this means, and by allegations, the allegations have to be criminal in nature. So what they're saying is that on the tape, they're saying, I'm accusing Lalata Siambola of having perpetrated a crime. And then uncorroborated is very important. So what uncorroborated means, per the law, is that either she was charged or she wasn't. So if she was charged, then the criminal allegation is corroborated. And if she wasn't charged, then it's uncorroborated. So now, I wasn't even accusing her then. Afterwards, now, in the current moment, I do accuse her of having perpetrated multiple crimes. But then, in the early morning hours of May 8th, 2018, I absolutely was not. I did not make that call to the non-emergency helpline of the Yale campus police, as I had been repeatedly instructed to do for any reason whatsoever at any time, even if I was unsure there was a problem, by Yale campus police chief Brunel Higgins. Multiple times he told me this via University Provost Stephanie Spangler. Okay, so, and this is in all the literature, this is on the website of the Yale Campus Police Department. They just say, call us anytime. They told me a million times, call us anytime for any reason, even if you're unsure there's an issue. We always want to check it out and make sure everything's okay. So I was not reporting a crime. I was not asking for a criminal investigation, and they know that, and they knew that. And Yale Campus Police Chief, yes, he absolutely 100% perjured himself in front of the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission. So anyway, but let's just assume for a second. That I actually was calling the non-emergency helpline of the Yale Campus Police on May 8th, 2018 to report a crime. Let's just assume that I was asking for the Yale Campus Police to come to my Yale dormitory, to my isolated dorm room on the 12th floor of the tower of the Hall of Graduate Studies to investigate a crime. Let's just assume that I did that. This law is ridiculous, and most other states do not allow this exemption from the release of the police body camera footage. And the reason why is because they say that it's uncorroborated. But uncorroborated means either she was charged or she wasn't. So if she was never charged, then the criminal allegation is uncorroborated. So, but what this means, but think for a second. Think for a second about what this means and why most other states wouldn't allow for this exemption. It basically means that a police department can refuse to release police body camera footage almost always, almost any time. And the reason why is because anytime there's an accusation of a criminal allegation, an accusation of criminal conduct, and the person doesn't end up being charged, then the police can just refuse to release the police body camera footage. Now think about what this means, and just anywhere on the tape. So this means that if, say, if there's a situation and there's a bystander, a private citizen bystander, and they can just, or the police themselves, if the police want to make sure that the police body camera footage, let's say they're in the middle of perpetrating police brutality against a person of color, and in the middle of doing so, they want to make sure that Yale or the campus, just any police department, that police body camera footage is not going to get released. They can just accuse someone of having perpetrated a crime, and as long as that person, whomever they're accusing on tape, is not charged ultimately, then it's an uncorroborated criminal allegation, and then now the exemption applies, and they can refuse to release the police body camera footage. So this is why most states don't allow for this exemption, and apparently Connecticut is a rare exception, and they don't allow for this exemption because, like I've just explained, it would make it the case that almost any time a police department could refuse to release police body camera footage to the public, which they have a right to see. So think for a second about how this applies to George Floyd's killing by Minneapolis police officers. If George Floyd had been killed in Connecticut, or if a George Floyd type case takes place in Connecticut in the future, a police department in Connecticut involved in such an instance would be able to, under this exemption, refuse to release the police body camera footage to the public, which they have a right to see. And the reason why is because George Floyd was accused of criminal activity. The police were there to investigate criminal activity. He was accused, based on the call by the store, he was accused of trying to pay with a counterfeit $20 bill. And that's what the Minneapolis police officers were there to investigate. George Floyd was never charged. Now, of course, George Floyd was never charged because he died. He was killed. But think about this for a second. If that had taken place in Connecticut, the police department involved under this exemption, under Connecticut state law, could have refused to release the police body camera footage to the public, which they have the right to see. So think about that for a second. And also someone, one of the police officers, if someone's savvy about the law, like I just said, they could just accuse anyone on the tape of having perpetrated a crime, and as long as that person isn't charged, then this exemption applies. So it really is a ridiculous exemption. It's a ludicrous exemption. It should be repealed. It's Connecticut state law that should be repealed, and I am intending on organizing politically, lobbying. I'm going to do everything in my power, including legal advocacy, as far as I can go with the money that I have. I don't have any money at this point. I need to raise money, and on that note, I will have my GoFundMe and PayPal me links below. Please donate to my legal fund and support me so that I can sue Yale and the fake news press and the entire moral outrage industry. and get this terrible, horrible Connecticut state law, this exemption, repealed. But also think about for a second what this means. This means that Connecticut is incentivizing racist cops to kill black suspects against whom they are perpetrating police brutality to prevent the police body camera footage from being released to the public, to prevent the public from seeing what they've done. They're incentivizing racist cops to actually kill black suspects. That's what Connecticut is doing. And it's doing it to protect the Yale administration. It's doing it to protect the Yale administration to prevent the Yale campus police body camera footage from May 8th, 2018 from the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax from being released to the public so the public can see. Now, the reason why I want the tapes released, and I've already gone in detail as to what is the content of these tapes, and it's on my YouTube channel here, and I have blog posts, and I've tweeted about it. So I've gone through, and I gave testimony to this effect at the before the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission, and Yale refuted nothing that I said because of course they can't, because I was telling the truth, and obviously it's on the tapes, so the commission saw the tapes, so they know I'm telling the truth. Like I was gonna lie about what they were just about to watch. So anyway, I lost my train of thought there for a second. But anyway, so yes. So this is actually Connecticut incentivizing racist cops to kill black suspects against whom they're perpetrating police brutality to prevent the police body camera footage from being released to the public. And it's to protect Yale. It's to protect the Yale administration so that the Yale administration doesn't, I remember what I was going to say. So the Yale administration doesn't have to release these tapes to the public so that the public can see. Now, the reason why I want the tapes released is because they show that at the very least, the Yale administration, including President Peter Salovey, including Yale Graduate School Dean Lynn Cooley, including Yale VP of Student Life Kimberly Goff Cruz, including Yale Campus Police Chief Brunel Higgins, all knew they were lying. They told disgusting, horrible lies about me. They knew I was innocent. They knew I had been harassed and stalked and terrorized in my isolated dorm room for months. They knew that they had told me repeatedly to call the Yale campus police for any reason at any time, even if I was unsure if there was a problem. Can you just imagine for a second? Just imagine for a second that Yale campus police chief Brunel Higgins had simply told the truth, had simply said, you know what, Sarah lives in an incredibly isolated way at the top of a tower of her dorm, and she was being harassed for months, and I told her repeatedly to call the Yale campus police for any reason at any time. And that's what she did. She did what I told her to do. Can you imagine if he had simply stated that? If he had simply told the truth? None of this hellish nightmare would have happened to me. I wouldn't have almost died. I wouldn't have had to go into hiding for 2 years, over 2 years. I wouldn't have been deluged by death threats and threats of violence and rape threats. I wouldn't have been suicidal. I wouldn't have almost killed myself countless times. My human and civil rights career wouldn't be decimated at this point. My name, my reputation, my livelihood. I'll never work. I'll never get a job. I'll never be able to support myself. Ever. I was, on a global scale, I was vilified. I was vilified on a global scale as a genocidal villain. How am I supposed to get a job now? In the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, Washington Post, LA Times, NPR, USA Today, everywhere. It was everywhere. And the Yale administration lied. And they continue to lie about me to this day, putting my life in the gravest danger. The reason why I want the Yale campus police body camera footage released is because at the very least it shows that the Yale administration 100% knew, at the very least, that there was a much more complicated, I mean, they were straight up lying through their teeth, don't get me wrong, but at the very least, they were very well aware that this was a much more complicated story and that this wasn't a simple case of someone trolling the main floor common room of her dorm and coming upon a random sleeping black person and dialing 911. That is the absolute antithesis of what happened, what actually occurred. And the Yale administration 100% knew that. And that's why I want the tapes released, is because they show that the Yale administration and Yale campus police chief Brunel Higgins lied, and that they're still lying about me, and that they perjured themselves before the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission. So something else I want to talk about is the fact that and that very good point about George Floyd, if he had been killed in Connecticut, was a very astute legal point made by my excellent attorney, Jay Woolman of the Randazza Legal Group. And he also made this other point, which Scott Greenfield, who's an excellent criminal defense attorney who's been very helpful to me and has written blog posts about my plight, he elaborated on this point. But it was something that Jay Woolman told me first, which is that what Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission hearing officer Danielle McGee says in her ridiculous nonsense proposed decision is that if the Yale campus police say that they went to my dorm, to my isolated dorm room, per my call to the non-emergency helpline of the Yale campus police on May 8, 2018, if they say that they were going there to conduct a criminal investigation, if they say that I was calling to report a crime, which I was not, but if they say that I was calling to report a crime and asking for a criminal investigation, then it was an uncorroborated criminal allegation. If they say, so what she's saying in her proposed decision, ludicrous proposed decision, is that if Yale says I was reporting a crime, then I was reporting a crime. If Yale says that I made an uncorroborated criminal allegation, then I am making an uncorroborated, or I was making an uncorroborated criminal allegation. Think about how ridiculous that is. I shouldn't swear because it's YouTube. And I still want to monetize at some point. And so please subscribe as well. Please subscribe so that I can monetize at some point. So think about how ludicrous that is. What Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission hearing officer Danielle McGee is saying is that if the public entity says this exemption applies, then the exemption applies. Well then, why even bother? Why did we even bother with the hearing? Why did we even bother having the appeal hearing? If you're going to say that if the public entity, which here is the Yale Campus Police Department, if they say the exemption applies, then the exemption applies, then why did we even bother having the appeal hearing? Hearing Officer McGee, do you want to answer that question? Because I think you should have to answer that question. Really think you should have to answer that question. So that's what she says in her proposed decision, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Probably even more ridiculous than the exemption itself. And so Scott Greenfield wrote a really terrific blog post on his blog, Simple Justice, that's called Yale Catches Braasch, and it's 22. And he wrote about this very astute legal point that my excellent attorney, Jay Woolman of the Randazza Legal Group, had made. And then Scott Greenfield, who is also an excellent attorney, a criminal defense attorney, elaborated on that point. And he said that there is another problem with with the exemption, the uncorroborated criminal allegation exemption, is that, and he says that hearing officer Danielle McGee fails to even address this point, which she should have addressed it, but she can't. She can't. She doesn't have a good response. So that's why she didn't address it in her ludicrous proposed decision. But it says that even if there is in the law, in the Connecticut state law, as part of this exemption, that it says even if there is an uncorroborated criminal allegation on the police body camera footage, it can still be released if it's in the public interest. And it is absolutely in the public interest for this tape to be released, for the public to see this tape. It is still being touted. It is still being touted, including by cast author Isabel Wilkerson on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, as evidence, the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax, I mean, not as a hate crime hoax, just as a Living While Black incident, is being touted on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, including by cast author Isabel Wilkerson, as a reason why the US is just as bad as Nazi Germany. And Jameli, I don't know how she pronounces her name, Jameli Hill, just said the same thing. She just tweeted the same thing, that the Cast book by Isabel Wilkerson proves that the US is just as bad as Nazi Germany because of what happened on May 8th, 2018 in the Yale dorm, the Hall of Graduate Studies, right outside of my isolated dorm room, proves, apparently, according to a lot of people, that the US is just as bad as Nazi Germany. So I think it probably is in the public interest for us to get to the bottom of whether this was a legitimate, actual Living While Black incident, or was it a Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax? And let me tell you, it was a hate crime hoax. And I think it's important for the public to know that, so that we can show that this should not be used as evidence by Isabel Wilkerson, the author of Cast on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, as evidence that the United States is just as bad as Nazi Germany. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that it's in the public interest for people to see this. So anyway, and then, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. So thank you for listening. I'm pretty sure my attorney, Jay Woolman, who's been excellent, he will be arguing on my behalf and making these points, these very astute legal points, before the Connecticut Freedom of Information Commission on September 8th. There's not a doubt in my mind that they will approve hearing officer McGee, Danielle McGee's farce of a proposed decision. They will approve it. She had 8 months. I just want people to realize that we are way past the deadline when they should have decided my appeal, my request to get the tapes released. And so she had 8 months. Granted, it was because of COVID-19, but she had 8 months to craft this decision to protect the Yale administration and racist cops in Connecticut, and to hang on to this exemption. So she wants to be able to keep the public, the Connecticut public, from being able to see police body camera footage that they have a right to see. So she had 8 months to craft this decision to protect the Yale administration from being exposed for their gross malfeasance, to protect racist cops in Connecticut, to incentivize racist cops in Connecticut to kill black suspects, to prevent the police body camera footage of their police brutality from being released to the public. And she had 8 months to craft this decision to retain a ridiculous Connecticut law that makes it easy for Connecticut to deny the public access to police body camera footage that they should absolutely have access to. And I just want everyone to know that. And then one of the reasons why you can absolutely see that this is what her intent is that she did everything in her power to try to prevent me from being able to appeal to the courts. My next step would be and will be, I don't have the money, but it would be to appeal to the courts and to fight this in court, to continue to fight this in court, which I just don't have the money to do. And Yale's completely aware of this. They've been fighting a war of attrition against me the entire time, trying to make this as drawn out and as expensive for me as they possibly can, because they know I have no money. And they're evil. And so you know that the same is true of Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission hearing officer Danielle McGee, because in a footnote in her farce of a proposed decision, she actually admits into evidence the charge letter, that includes the police reports from May 9th and March 9th, 2018, and May 8th, 2018. And she at first she didn't want to admit those into evidence during the actual hearing that took place back in November of 2019, but she admits them into evidence because she didn't want that to be a basis for appeal. That's why she's doing that. Everyone knows that's why she's doing that. So this is a proposed decision that she had 8 months to craft, to do everything in her power to hurt the public, protect racist cops, and protect the Yale administration from being exposed for their gross malfeasance, and to hang on to a law which makes it really easy for Connecticut to deny the public access to police body camera footage that they should have. And I just want the whole world to know that. Everyone knows this. You're not fooling anybody, okay? Connecticut Freedom of Information Act Commission, hearing officer Danielle McGee, Yale's attorneys, the Yale administration, the Yale campus police chief Brunel Higgins. No one is confused. No one is confused that you're evil, that you're horrible people, and that you're manipulating and twisting the law to hurt the public and deny them access to police body camera footage that they should have. No one is confused about this. So I just want you to know that. So please, 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 I'll have my GoFundMe and my PayPal me links below. And so please it's getting fainter, but I still have a faint hope that I'll be able to sue Yale. And that I'll be able to sue the fake news press, and that I'll be able to sue the entire moral outrage industry. I'm gonna do everything in my power, everything I can, to try to raise every penny, every dollar. And so please just help me. And my attorney, Jay Woolman, who's done with the Randazzo Legal Group, who's done an amazing job, he hasn't been paid in a while. So if you could help me pay him, he's not working for free. I've promised to pay him at some point, but I don't have any money to pay him right now. So if you could please help me pay him, that would really mean the world to me, because he's done an amazing job, and he's going to be arguing on my behalf before the Connecticut Freedom of Information Commission on September 8th. And then we'll see how that goes. I don't have a lot of hope that will go my way. I'm pretty sure it won't. And then that may have to be the end of it, because I just don't have any money. But anyway, so that's where we're at, and I wanted to let everybody know I love you all so much. Thank you so much for all of your support and kind words. You're saving my life, and you're saving my career, and I will never stop fighting for justice for everyone who has been cyber mobbed and defamed and has had, especially for those who've already taken their lives. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.